You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday 11th of April 2014. Virgin pervert driven from school to police station for grooming Derby girl of 15. Yeovil murder, Gobinath Velasamy jailed for 18 years for killing Mayurathi Perin Pamorthi. Islamic extremist working as psychiatrist for NHS. 600,000 migrants are lined up along North African coast and ready to enter Europe this summer, warns Italy. Norway, one cough away from a TB epidemic. Greece, Athens mayor candidates split on mosque referendum proposal. Nick Griffin MEP from the belly of the beast. US, Russia uses energy supplies to control Ukraine. Thought for the day, 350,000, is that all? And finally, the blonde mortician. UK news. Virgin pervert driven from school to police station for grooming Derby girl of 15. A virgin pervert groomed a profoundly deaf Derby schoolgirl over Facebook. Mohammed Raja arranged to meet the 15-year-old at the gates of her school and arrived at lunchtime holding a suitcase. But a friend of the victim and her sister, who were also at the gates, became suspicious, challenged him and urged him to get into their car as he tried to escape. Once inside, they told the 24-year-old they were going to take him home to Birmingham, but instead drove him straight to a police station where he was arrested. Raja was jailed for 16 months at Derby Crown Court, while the two girls who helped snare him have been awarded almost £1,000 from the public purse for being instrumental in helping bring him to justice. Jailing Raja of Ladypool Road, Birmingham, Judge John Burgess said, "Girls aged 15 are vulnerable anyway because of their age, but this girl was particularly vulnerable because of her profound deafness. You talked to her over Facebook about marriage and making her pregnant. You saw her on Skype and knew she was deaf because you could see both of her hearing aids. You are also an overstayer, and I imagine the immigration authorities will deport you back to Pakistan when you are released from prison. Having you deported is something I'm going to recommend. World at 8, and his rotten family as well. These things are rarely non-family orientated in their communities." Yeovil murder, Gobinath Velasamy jailed for 18 years for killing Mayurathi Perin Pamorthi. A callous killer has been found guilty of murder after police filmed him confessing at the scene and saying, "I hope she's dead, I'm happy she die." Gobinath Velasamy still had blood on his hands where his dramatic arrest was captured on a police body cam as he calmly told officers, "Some people are not eligible to be on this earth." Velasamy was handed a life sentence and must serve at least 18 years in prison. The Sri Lankan asylum seeker was caught within minutes of his brutal knife attack on victim Mayurathi Perin Pamorthi because a neighbour saw it through a ground floor window. Former shop worker Velasamy killed 32-year-old mother of one, Mayurathi, after going to the flat she shared with Raj, her new boyfriend, in Tudor Court, Yeovil, when she was alone on the night of August 6th last year. Horrified neighbour Bernadine Reid saw Mayurathi run to the window with her arms outstretched, shouting for help before Velasamy dragged her back and killed her. Mayurathi was stabbed so many times in the neck she died before police arrived, and a pathologist was unable to count the number of wounds. World at 8. And still the council say, "Fortunately, incidents such as this remain extremely rare in Yeovil, and this makes this tragic incident all the more shocking. People should feel confident that Yeovil remains a safe town in which to love, work and socialise. And the hidden message? Bring more immigrants in. Even this Sri Lankan unmarried had produced a child over here for benefits for the rest of its life." Islamic extremist working as psychiatrist for NHS. Doctor treating vulnerable patients is a senior leader of radical Islamic party that seeks to ban same-sex relationships and oppress women. A British doctor responsible for the care of some of the country's most vulnerable people can today be exposed as a senior leader of a radical Islamist party banned in several countries. Dr Imran Waheed is a consultant psychiatrist at the Birmingham and Solihull Mental Health NHS Trust, BSMHT, one of the largest of its kind in the country. He specialises in the treatment of sexual dysfunction, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression and obsessive compulsive disorders, and also provides advice to courts in criminal cases on potentially dangerous individuals. But it can now be revealed that Dr Waheed is also a leading member of his ut-Tahrir, HT, which campaigns for an Islamic caliphate ruled by hardline Sharia law. Dr Waheed is named in the organisation's current media information pack posted online as its chief media advisor and one of its 6 leading members in Britain. World at 8. Is the BMA entirely stupid, or does being a head doctor count as different? European news. 600,000 migrants are lined up along North African coast and ready to enter Europe this summer, warns Italy. Up to 600,000 would-be migrants are in a position to set sail from North Africa in an onslaught on Europe's coastline, the Italian government has warned. Italy, with its southernmost province just 80 miles from Libya, is the gateway for thousands of clandestine migrants washing up on Europe's shores since the Arab Spring left swathes of northern Africa in chaos. More than 40,000 made the crossing last year, many on overcrowded and dangerous wooden boats. Investigators estimate that 20% ultimately end up in Britain. World at 8. More likely 99.9%, matey. Norway, one cough away from a TB epidemic. Tuberculosis is making headway in Norway. From 1996 to 2013, the number of new registered cases doubled, said Trudy Arnesen, chief physician at the Norwegian Institute for Public Health's Division of Infectious Disease Control. Norway almost managed to stamp out the disease with improved standards of living, better nutrition and more spacious housing, frequent examinations of the population and the use of antibiotics, including the vaccination of all school children with BCG, short for Bacille Calmette Guerin, as of 1947. Although the disease mainly infects the world's poor, it is making a comeback in the richer countries. Oh, guess why? The outbreak is happening in the Nordic countries' European neighbourhood. London has been given the unfortunate reputation of being Western Europe's tuberculosis capital. World at 8. Don't you just love it? Greece. Athens mayor candidates split on mosque referendum proposal. Athens, Greece. Athens centre-left mayor Gorgias Kamanis says Greece has an international obligation to build a mosque in the capital, criticising a proposal by his main opponent in municipal elections next month to hold a city referendum on the project. Plans to build a mosque in the Greek capital have been delayed for more than a decade, with Muslim immigrants instead using makeshift prayer sites around the city. But the government has agreed to fund a project worth nearly €1 million at a former industrial site where a major redevelopment was planned. Kamenis, the front-runner in opinion polls for re-election on Monday, described the referendum proposal by Conservative challenger Aris Spiliotopoulos as a serious blunder. Spiliotopoulos, a former religious affairs minister, argued voters should have the last word. World at 8. I will have the last word. No mosques should be built ever out of a known Arab world. Ever. Belly of the Beast. I now hand you over to Nick Griffin MEP.
I'm afraid I'm rather throwing this broadcast together today because I've been working all day on a different broadcast. That, of course, is the party political broadcast that we're entitled to our 4 minutes 40 seconds ration of democracy every couple of years, because yet again we're contesting a full slate of candidates in these European elections. Thanks to everyone who's standing in those. Thanks to everyone who's donated the money to make it happen. Thanks to those who are going to donate the money in the next few days to help us get as many millions of leaflets out as possible. Thanks to you all. And I'm sure that part of your reward is going to be seeing the broadcast that we've made in a way, because it's actually the core part of it is a cartoon. And I can tell you it's very funny, very incisive. It really does a good job. In fact, it does such a good job that the BBC, ITN, Channel 5, all the rest of them are refusing to show it. They're hiding behind claims that our cartoon might break the anti-free speech race laws. Actually, it's ridiculous because I know those laws very well. And as a matter of fact, the material in it isn't that different to what frequently appears in Little John's columns in papers like The Sun and The Mail. Except, of course, that it's us making these very effective points, and particularly that we're doing it in a much more sophisticated way than Little John does, because he just writes these things. We've written it, the message is being sung, and it's animated. It really is professional, and it really is groundbreaking. So, of course, they don't want you, or millions of other British voters to see it. So we've had a succession of huge rows with the broadcasting people over the last few days, in fact, a couple of weeks now. But in the end, they control what's shown, but they can't control how we can work to turn their decisions to our advantage. ITV has this afternoon come back confirming that they don't object to our telling people about the cartoon that we're now not allowed to show, and the fact that we're not allowed to show it. Isn't that nice of them? And their problem is that we've got a secret weapon. In fact, it's not really that secret anymore. It's the internet, and in particular, it's Facebook. Because our Facebook reach is now over 1.5 million likes and viewings and so on for a single good item, just for one clever, imaginative photo we ask people to share. And this is so much more than that. And that 1.5 million reach is rising rapidly. Let me give you a comparison. The circulation of a loss-making Guardian is 100,000. We really are streets ahead of these people and gaining on them all the time. And we'll be using our Facebook reach and the rest of our alternative mass media on the internet to promote this censored cartoon in an enormous way. It's going to be seen by millions of people. Another word of thanks, by the way, that a significant part of our rapidly growing internet reach is down to our online activist army. Thanks, boys and girls. What you do is a tremendous job. Those of you who aren't yet online activists, please sign up. It's easy to do and it's fun. And you can see from the statistics, everyone can see, even the Telegraph's noted it, it's having a huge impact. So keep it up and step it up. Looking in the papers today, when I had a brief time to go online, because I don't buy them, and I urge you, do not buy the papers. Go online and get it for free. It's killing them. Let's make that effective as possible. Tell everyone you meet, I don't buy papers anymore. Such a waste of money. I read it all online. Let's put those buggers out of business. They've tried to do it to us for long enough. But one of the most interesting stories today is the warning from the head of the Italian Navy that the influx of immigrants across the Mediterranean has reached, quote, biblical proportions, unquote. Italy's Interior Minister, Angelino Alfano, has warned that more than 500,000 migrants are right now ready to set sail from North Africa to come to soft touch Europe, of which, of course, the softest touch, with the exception of the silly Swedes, is Britain. Keep paying your taxes, folks. And an estimated 6,000 Syrian and Eritrean migrants, including women and babies, have been rescued by Italy's Navy in the last 4 days alone. 6,000 in 4 days. And this is speeding up. Following the deaths of a number of would-be migrants not so long ago, Italy's improved rescue operation has, quote, created a boom in landings with up to 6 boats a day calling for rescue, often hundreds of miles from shore, says the Interior Minister of Italy. He says again, the Mediterranean used to be a peaceful lake. Now it's another Somalia, unquote. Since October last year, almost 19,000 migrants have landed on the Italian coastline, a tenfold increase on the year before. And it's believed that 1 in 5 continue on to the UK. Oh, well, that's what the British experts say, paid by the government. My guess is a damn sight higher than 1 in 5. But the important thing is the sheer number of those coming is going through the roof. As the minister said, it's biblical. Some of the old hands amongst you will remember the brilliant novel by Jean Raspail, Camp of the Saints, which in 1974 predicted precisely this invasion and precisely the same pitiful response from the establishment. He also predicted the quiet death of the white world with no reaction from anyone other than an elderly professor and a couple of army veterans. It's not going to be like that, you know. All over Europe, nationalist, patriotic and populist forces are growing in strength. Our combined vote in these European elections is going to be absolutely stunning. The idea that Europe, the nations of Europe, including Britain, are going to lie down and simply allow themselves to be invaded out of existence by the Third World, well, it made a good novel back in 1974, but it is not going to happen. There is going to be a tremendous fight against this. We're going to be part of leading that fight, and that fight is one that our people in the end are going to win, because we're fighting to preserve our own turf, our own territory, a future for our own children, and our people, once it starts, will fight like lions. Together with the gathering emerging financial markets crash, which is gaining strength, unseen, quietly outside of the posh papers' financial pages, it's coming. Together with that, this migration flood means the day of reckoning for the old system is on the way. Perhaps that's why the ruling elite are so recklessly pushing for war against Russia, because it's an ancient tradition of tyrants and tyrannies to divert attention from problems they can't solve at home by looking for fights overseas. As Gary Newman put it, they could give us a war just to keep us amused. By the way, if you're feeling in the mood for a classy bit of modern and slightly decadent music, do have a quick YouTube hunt for Gary Newman and Little Boots and their cover recordings of Venus in Furs and other Lou Reed and also Tube by Army tracks. Great stuff. Which of course now makes me a marked man in the eyes of the purists. Join the queue, chaps, join the queue. I'm off to Strasbourg by way of a pre-election campaign meeting in the southeast on Sunday. Strasbourg, it's the last plenary session of the entire Parliament. It's incredible how time flies when you're fighting a whole team of opponents hell-bent on your annihilation. It's been 5 years. They made up their minds when we won in 2009 that they would break me and destroy the BNP before the term was up. Well, I'm glad to say they failed. I've been there for the full 5 years, saying all sorts of things they really didn't want me to say. And in their worst nightmares in 2009, I doubt it ever occurred to them that my being an MEP would put me in the position to tip the balance against their planned war in Syria, which was itself intended to be the trigger for an even bigger war on Iran, and then on to the neutralisation of Russia. Because that, my friends, is the neocon game plan. It was all set out in detail for all to see in their project for the new American century, and they're still doing their worst to bring their crazy criminal scheme to fruition. Fortunately, President Putin is a class act, well up there in a league of his own. So they haven't had their way. Once the election campaign is over, and assuming we get a gentle, quiet, not too hot summer, I'll settle down and complete the definitive study that shows that the failed war of political extermination waged against the BNP over the last 5 years has been orchestrated and no doubt funded by a little dedicated subsection, a wholly owned subsidiary of the neocon conspiracy to break and remake the world in the interest of US dollar imperialism and the criminals of the global Zionist elite, because that is the reality of the situation. Which is why it's so remarkable and so good that while we're a bit bloodied, we're still standing, we're still fighting back, and that we're back in the business of scaring the establishment into making stupid mistakes, such as banning BNP broadcasts in the age of the internet.
Thank you very much for your input, Nick, and see you at the Surrey fundraiser on Sunday. World News. US. Russia uses energy supplies to control Ukraine. The US has accused Russia of using its energy supplies as a tool of coercion to try to control Ukraine. It comes after Russia warned European countries of possible gas supply cuts because of Ukraine's energy debts. Separately, NATO has defended the accuracy of satellite images which it says show Russian troops massed on the Ukrainian border in recent weeks. A Russian official earlier said the images depicted a military exercise that was held in August last year. NATO says the satellite images it unveiled early on Thursday show some 40,000 Russian troops near the border in late March and early April. They also reveal sophisticated warplanes and helicopters. Later, NATO released additional images, some dating back to 2013 and others from early 2014, purporting to show the same areas unoccupied prior to March. In a statement, the alliance says the images show the Russian claims that they were old was categorically false and that there was no evidence of military activity in these areas in 2013 or early 2014. Thought for the day. 350,000 migrants, is that all? Oh, hey hum, only 350,000 migrants have been missed. What about all the thousands that suddenly appear in one new area and then before you can say catch a nigger by his toe, there seem to be hundreds of the buggers? Where did they come from? Flown in by a heavenly choir on a sodding great golden chariot? Wafted in on magic carpet complete with houses, cars, mobile phones and all heavily pregnant? I've come to the conclusion that the only thing is to laugh. Yeah, giggle maybe, but please have a really good English guffaw at the state of the nation. Because my friends, if you don't, you will really cry, and you know the old adage, or rather two of them. If you laugh, the world laughs with you, and if you cry alone. The other one I'm thinking of is the very true one of negative publicity. That is when a person or the media keeps sending out negative pictures, as in we are in reality awash with immigrants and swimming with the sharks. People, namely the sheeples and the chattering classes, will immediately think of something else more pleasant, or rather something else they can control, like booze, reality TV, or whether little Damien should have a laptop. This is why the Marxist cum diversity media machine is so very clever. They focus on the imaginary good that apparently comes from massive immigration to this country, and many a TV programme has started with the title "The Truth About Immigration," and what appears is towards the end of an uplifting message that either we as a country were founded, like America, on immigration, or that we have all benefited from cheaper something or others from immigration, and the final calumny is that we all need more immigration to help us out in the future. Now, whilst the "it is already too laters" and "can't do nothing now" brigade are busy worrying over voting in X Factor or partying, there are some amongst us who actually take notice of these snippets of information, or rather misinformation, in the media. To say we nationalists only think of our country is wrong. I myself am thinking of me and my family when I read this crap and look around with my eyes open and not centred on the reduced counter at Tesco's, with the Nepalese security guard giving me the evil eye. He must have listened to the world at 8. Good. When I was leaving the said supermarket the other day, I noticed, as you do, a trio of very black young women walking away. All were African, all were pregnant, and all had a couple of kids in pushchairs. They looked like the Black Mothers Union. Now, my point being, they were new migrants, all breeding, and no sign of a guy who was probably either at home on benefits or could be working, but unlikely down here. Now, if only one of the children of these three produces one child, just imagine how real life figures work out. If all three of those women have 4 children, say 2 boys and 2 girls, you won't have to wait too long for the girls to get knocked up and the boys to knock up someone else's daughters. So we have yet again, in the space of 14 years, 4 black kids with, say, 4 brats. And that is a conservative 16 babies from just 3 women. Now start counting. And the Daily Mail reports just 350,000 Eastern Europeans have been missed. Well, let me tell immigration stats that to my knowledge in the 1980s, black Nigerians were coming over here as students, getting each other pregnant or some white girl, and leaving their progeny in expensive council foster care when they gaily went home with their degrees. The county was Wiltshire, and now that progeny has produced and is still producing babies on benefits and playing the race card wherever they can, be it education, childcare or housing. So my message is stop getting your knickers in a twist over Eastern Europeans when this has been going on for the last 3 decades, and not only in Wiltshire. Another fact that slips through the gap is that most of the Arabs and Africans from Africa come through the EU zones. Are these classed as Eastern Europeans, or rather dark Romas? They come through the same way as those people and can hardly come straight from Africa on a boat up to Plymouth Harbour, can they? The Eastern Europeans are just the icing on the cake, the cherry on the top, and the final genocide for the UK. Or rather, I must put it in clear diversity and multicultural language for the hard of understanding and the undereducated amongst us. We should all welcome all these people for many reasons. They need a better way of life, and we will pay to give it to them. They enrich our society with their cultures, or rather lack of them, and we should be very grateful. They keep salaries down, which makes more profit for very few of our own, but never mind. We welcome their mosques, their burqas, their brats, and their overwhelming sense of Britishness and willingness to integrate and help us. We admire the way one family can move into a street and before you can say bloody hell, our road looks like Southall on a bad day, and smells worse. It is without doubt a real pleasure to wait months for your GP and then sit with the remnants of the third world. Likewise in our NHS hospitals, where in some cases an interpreter is needed to actually understand what is wrong with you. But then it's up to you to learn Urdu, Mandarin or Swahili, isn't it? Just look how having a daughter around the age of 12 will certainly have her horizons broadened, and not in the best possible taste, by the local Muslim grooming gangs who live just round the corner for ease of abductions, and see how the local council and police ignore it because, of course, ethnics can do no evil in the eyes of our laws, although evil is probably the reason why they had to leave their countries in the first place. But to be happy with the future, see the light at the end of the bloody tunnel, and to immerse yourself in someone else's culture when you didn't have the brains or the will to immerse yourself in your own, you must understand the immigrant and allow for their little oddities in your own country. You must allow for rape, murder, gangland killings, drugs, alcohol, selling that is, bushmeat, all the local markets now a different shade of pale, houses being adapted or put up right on your doorstep literally without any censure from the council, and which you had to have 3 permissions to erect a shed in your own back garden, and the wonderful sight of trying to spot a white face in your immediate locale to have a conversation with. But think just how much you're doing for your country and future generations in putting up with this and indeed loving every minute of it. Even greater expectations will come with Sharia laws in most areas. Out will go the pubs, non-immigrant restaurants, churches, village halls, English-run farms, pigs, dogs, make-up, discos or clubs, and fast following on those heels, you. But we must maintain good news, happy information and a smiley face despite it all. But that is something we Brits are very good at. Unfortunately, too good at. And finally, the blonde mortician. A man who had just died is delivered to a local mortuary, wearing an expensive, expertly tailored black suit. The female blonde mortician asks the deceased's wife how she would like the body dressed. She points out that the man does look good in the black suit he's already wearing. The widow, however, says that she always thought her husband looked his best in blue, and that she wants him in a blue suit. She gives the blonde mortician a blank cheque and says, "I don't care what it costs, but please have my husband in a blue suit for the viewing." The woman returns the next day for the wake. To her delight, she finds her husband dressed in a gorgeous blue suit with a subtle chalk stripe. The suit fits him perfectly. She says to the mortician, "Whatever this cost, I'm very satisfied. You did an excellent job and I'm very, very grateful. How much did you spend?" To her astonishment, the blonde mortician presents her with the blank cheque. "There's no charge," she says. "No, really, I must compensate you for the cost of that exquisite blue suit," she says. "Honestly, ma'am," the blonde says, "it costs nothing. You see, a deceased gentleman of about your husband's size was brought in shortly after you left yesterday, and he was wearing an attractive blue suit. I asked his wife if she minded him going to his grave wearing a black suit instead, and she said it made no difference as long as he looked nice. So I just switched the heads." I bet you didn't see that coming. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozar, and I and the team at World at 8 and Radio Britain wish you all a very happy and a very safe weekend.